Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about the 44th year of Dungeons & Dragons history, the year 2017. And we're going to talk about that year through the catalyst of clear, through the filter of clear. Catalyst, location, entity, artifact, and relationship. Who is the catalyst for Dungeons & Dragons in 2017? Well, it's a gentleman by the name of Matt Mercer. And Matt Mercer is incredibly important in the history of Dungeons & Dragons because he has accomplished something that no one else has ever accomplished at the level he's accomplished it, right? So the biggest thing that Matt Mercer is a Hollywood voice actor. He specifically makes his living doing voiceover work, right? So he's done voiceover work for cartoons. He's done voiceover work for video games. And that's his primary ballywick, right? That's what he makes his living doing. And he knows a lot of other Hollywood voice actors, okay? So Matt Mercer comes forward, and he brings forward a Pathfinder game with Vox Machina, which is his campaign world, right? And he brings in these voice actors, right? And I believe when it started, well, actually, that's early in its creation. It was connected to Geek and Sundry, which is also connected to Felicia Day, right? So again, everything Matt Mercer has done with Dungeons & Dragons has been smeared with celebrity. His own celebrity, celebrity of others, his connection to Hollywood celebrities, right? So, but what he does is he brings forward a fantasy tabletop role-playing game, streaming game. It is originally Pathfinder. He realizes that they are getting some success and there is a growing audience for the campaign that they are streaming with these very robust and exciting and compelling voice work that they're doing and a good, strong, cohesive story that's moving forward. His talent as a game master, right? And as soon as it's clear that there's success attached to this project, it is attached to Geek and Sundry, which is a powerful platform which absolutely boosts the signal on what Matt Mercer is doing. And Matt Mercer, right quick, realizes that Pathfinder doesn't matter, which a lot of people have realized for a long time. And the reality is, Pathfinder has done a tremendous job of being Dungeons & Dragons 3.75. And Pathfinder was really given a huge amount of momentum from the failures of 4th edition, right? But what happens is Matt Mercer realizes what many people realize, which is for many, maybe most players, there absolutely is no stand-in for Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is a known name, and the reality is it doesn't really matter how well your game runs or the quality you're putting into your games. If you are not Dungeons & Dragons, you are not Dungeons & Dragons. And if you are Dungeons & Dragons, then you are Dungeons & Dragons, right? So the reality is the Vox Machina campaign, the streaming campaign, the most successful Dungeons & Dragons streaming campaign of all history is now rolling with Matt Mercer and Hollywood voice actors. This has tremendous success. Vox Machina leaves in the dust every single podcast that has ever streamed a game, every single YouTube stream, every single Twitch stream. Nothing comes close to what Matt Mercer accomplishes. And the line of success that he draws in the sand, saying this is the standard for a streamed game. This is what it looks like. So many people watch Matt Mercer do this that really he also then becomes the default face in some ways. Wizards of the Coast would never say this, but in many ways, Matt Mercer becomes the face of Dungeons & Dragons today, right? And I think that's still the case. I think when people think Dungeons & Dragons, way more people are going to see in their minds the face of Matt Mercer than the face of Mike Mearls, right? Okay? So Matt Mercer attaches himself strongly to Dungeons & Dragons, sets the bar for what a streaming game can be, which is millions and millions of views, and quite frankly, most likely millions of dollars, right? I'm pretty sure at minimum hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been made off of the Vox Machina material, and it's quite likely that millions of dollars have been made off of Vox Machina. And Matt Mercer has done this very carefully and very respectfully, right? He's been very careful generally to respect the name of Dungeons & Dragons, and he has built a strong relationship with Wizards of the Coast, even as he's taking their game for a joyride in many ways, right? So there's a lot of complexity around what Matt Mercer has done, but without exception, no one can contest that Matt Mercer has brought thousands or hundreds of thousands of new players to the game, has given the game an energy that no other creator has ever been able to do on their own. And there's a ton of momentum that is being enjoyed right today with new Dungeon Masters and new players and even new designers. Matt Mercer brings those forward with Vox Machina and his streaming game, and the most successful Dungeons & Dragons streaming game ever to be done, okay? And it also, now, there are of course, a few problems. One of the things is the production value on those stream games are so high, and also the fact that Matt Mercer is an incredibly skilled dungeon master. It has given somewhat of a skewed view of what actually a D&D game looks like. And there have been some fights within the community, some skirmishes over are they doing narrative over mechanics? Are they doing mechanics over narrative? All that. But the reality is, at the end of the day, Matt Mercer has absolutely given momentum to Dungeons & Dragons, and he's a really interesting... very, very close to people who are really still trying to get needs that are at the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy, right? And so Pretoria, South Africa reminds us that it is not equally easy, it is not equally accessible to play Dungeons & Dragons on every continent on the planet. Some continents it is much, much easier, right? Europe, America, we are incredibly well equipped. Japan, well, it's not a continent, but you know where I'm running. All right, so basically, it's much easier to play. But in places like South Africa, in places like Africa, in China, in India, it can be more difficult to play Dungeons & Dragons, getting everything you need to play. And so it also tells us that Pretoria, South Africa, points to the reality that there is still much to be done as far as making accessibility and ease of play even across all the continents, right? Who is our entity for the year 2017? Well, it's Jodie Whittaker, and she is the 13th Doctor Who, right? And in 2017, it was announced that she would be the 13th Doctor Who, taking over for Peter Capaldi, and Jodie walks into a situation where she becomes the first female Doctor Who ever to exist, right? And it also, and of course, this event points us toward the changes in our world, these very strong, distinct changes in our world, which are surrounding identity, right? So for a long time, for decades, many viewers thought of the Doctor as a male, right? Well, in 2017, the show says, hey, we're going to change that part of the identity. And so identity continues to be this major theme in the political, cultural, and social momentum of the day. And of course, this impacts how games are being designed, how they're being run, and how they're being played, right? What is our artifact for the year 2017? It is the 5th edition Monster Manual, right? So the 5th edition Monster Manual comes out, and it completes the, sorry, I said yesterday that DMG completed it, but the 5th edition Monster Manual completes the 5th rendition of 3 core rule books, all 200 pages plus, all hardback, right? The 5th edition Monster Manual also brings forward a new edition, art-wise, layout-wise, and writing for all of the classic monsters. But one of the things that the 5th edition Monster Manual doesn't do is it does not present many new monsters at all. There is a very much within the 5th edition Monster Manual, a very tight cleaving to, a kind of a clinging to the traditions of 1E, 2E, and 3E. And there is, without a doubt, an attempt to distance itself from 4th edition, which really struggled commercially and critically. But with the 5th edition moving forward, the Monster Manual is really becoming a very, a distinctly unique and, I'm sorry, excuse me. The Monster Manual really becomes a distinctly, it establishes itself as upholding the traditions of 1E, 2E, and 3E. And also it takes its place as one of the 3 books that is putting the trajectory of Dungeons & Dragons up rather than down, which quite arguably 4th edition was definitely bringing the edition down. And with the shortest run of editions, 4th edition is really kind of put to rest with Monster Manual being published and available. There is now a fully playable, fully embraceable set of core rule books, which are strong enough to stand and actually absolutely pummel into the ground any idea that Pathfinder would remain as a competitor, right? And right away, Pathfinder third-party creators began to switch their content over and make their content accessible to 5th edition. It's just, and 5th edition is really, it is the central, it remains as the central pillar for all fantasy tabletop role-playing games. And there are very few fantasy tabletop role-playing games that are an ongoing concern that don't make material available for 5th edition players, because the 5th edition player base is so large comparatively within the TRPG community. All right. What is the relationship Dungeons & Dragons has in 2017? Its relationship is to community. Dungeons & Dragons has a very strong relationship with its community. So Dungeons & Dragons, of course, started in 1974, and I would say probably from day 2, there was a community. There were people who were saying, this game is a central part of my life. And that's what community is. It is people who are seeing the game saying, I see the beauty in this game. I want to play this game. Then attaching themselves and attaching goodwill to their players, the dungeon masters, and maybe if they know a designer, to the designers they know, and then saying, my love for this game goes beyond even my relationships that I need to directly play the game. I want to be in conversation. I want to be in community with people who also love the game, right? And since day 2 of Dungeons & Dragons, the Dungeons & Dragons community has grown. And the Dungeons & Dragons community has contained, all specific to the game of Dungeons & Dragons, people who are rules experts, people who are incredibly skilled at miniatures, at painting miniatures and making awesome terrain for the game. There have been people who are really knowledgeable about how to be, about the intricacies of being the very best player you can possibly be, how to make a better table overall for all the players who are on board. The community contains people who are scholars, scholars of material that comes up within the game, scholars of the history of the actual game, scholars of the the game's place in America, the game's place in Europe, the game's place overall in the world, the game's place in the international scene, right? And Dungeons and Dragons community is very robust, it is very rich, and it is very very diverse, right? There are people of every single shape, size, color. It goes across the spectrum, right? And the Dungeons and Dragons community is a big part of what the game is, and the Dungeons and Dragons community makes it so that the game itself is a richer experience for everyone involved. And then the game itself, of course, makes everyone who's in the community, it makes their lives richer. So overall, the Dungeons and Dragons relationship with its community is very symbiotic, and it's important to understand, how it is beneficial in both directions. The community is blessed by the product is blessed by the community, and it's a good situation for everyone. Now, with that said, of course, there are some harsh moments within the communities, and their harsh moments spike up frequently. Probably, every year, every 2 years, there will be something that the community itself is very, very much split. 60-40 splits, 70-30 splits, 51-49 splits. And where some people in the community feel one way and other people in the community feel another way. But the reality is, the love of the game there's never been anything which has sundered the community completely, right? The love of the game has to date never proven to be stronger. Actually, the love of the game, there has never been an issue that has been proven to be stronger than the love of the game itself. So community is incredibly important, and Dungeons & Dragons has a relationship with community. That is a clear history of the 44th year of Dungeons & Dragons. I would really love to know your opinion of Matt Mercer's Vox Machina. Are you a fan? Do you watch those? Do you share concerns that the level that there are many players who that is their entrance into Dungeons & Dragons, and when they're seeing a game, that really is high production value that contains professional voice actors, after that, almost everything else they're ever going to see is going to be a downbeat, right? At their own table. Maybe that's a concern, right? Like, I was very fortunate. When I was 10 years old, when I was 12 years old, I really never even seen a Dungeons & Dragons game. I played it for myself, and it was terrible. And virtually every game I've ever played since was better. But now, like, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people come in through Matt Mercer, see an incredible game from the start, and then spend the rest of their lives making games that aren't even a shadow of what he's already created. That's challenging, right? It's challenging. But I'm really curious of your opinion on Matt Mercer. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.